Welcome back to another vlog. My name is Henry Singleton. Probably don't actually need to keep on saying my name in these, do I, at the beginning? But there we are. Haven't done another vlog for a little while, so I want to get straight into it. There's quite a few things that have gone on since I last did a video. The biggest one, of course, being, I suppose, the inevitable departure of Mick McCarthy. Ipswich and him have gone separate ways. As I say, we all knew was probably going to happen. I think in the last video I said that if Marcus Evans has got any kind of business sense, which of course he does, then he's going to know that keeping Mick on was going to mean that a lot of people weren't going to be coming back next year, whether kind of casually on a Saturday or a Tuesday or through season tickets. And I think it was pretty important to announce the fact that Mick would be moving on before season ticket early bird deadline came out. So yeah, not a surprise at all, and I think just the right decision all round, despite kind of my thoughts on it, which are that I think if you look back, which I'll do in a second, through Mick's tenure as a whole, I think he's done a very kind of, what's the right word, decent job with the money that he's had at his disposal. He hasn't set the world alight, but he was never going to with the money that he's had, and I think he's done a pretty good job if we actually reflect on it in a kind of fair way. So obviously we're looking for a new manager now, and we're in that kind of very strange period where kind of I've never really known, well, certainly not supporting Ipswich before. I know it's happened to a couple of other clubs where the manager's, it's announced that he's going to leave before the end of the season. So we're in a very kind of strange limbo period, which I think is odd for us fans, and it's odd for Mick. Mick's come out and said himself that it's a very strange time for him. He's never experienced anything like it. Because if you can imagine from his point of view, I think he described it as kind of being in a driverless car, because he's still picking the team, all that kind of thing, but he can't fully engage, I'm guessing, in the job because, you know, he doesn't have the investment of things next season. So for instance, sorting out contracts or developing players or looking out for who might be good for next year, that's not his remit anymore. So it's kind of yeah, a strange point in time. I think there's been a lot of chat about, you know, he should just leave now, and someone else, I think either Brian Klug or Gerard Nash or whoever it may be, someone in the staff of Ipswich should take over, because it's pointless him being here now, which I kind of get, but at the same time, just let him see it out, and then we can start again in the summer, can't we? So yeah, as I said, I do want to just quickly sum up his time at Ipswich, and yep, I think it's been fairly decent. I know a lot of people won't agree with me on that, and I was at Brentford away on Saturday, and the kind of atmosphere and the reception that he got still isn't great, but there we are. So obviously he took over about 5.5 years ago now, when we were in serious trouble, weren't we? I think how many points did I think we had? About, I don't know how many points, but we didn't have many points, and he took over fairly, I think just before Christmas, when things were looking bleak, and he completely turned it around. We ended up getting kind of 50 points, I think it was. I mean, that was a kind of mad season where the number of points, the teams at the bottom just kept on winning and winning and winning. And we got some really important wins, and he kind of galvanised everything, and he got a whole feeling of togetherness back after those two disastrous reigns of Roy Keane and Paul Jewell, both of whom had a lot of money to spend, both of whom spent it very poorly. And that was something that Mick did really well when he came in, so he kind of galvanised the group. We know what he's about, that team spirit, not necessarily flashy players on a lot of money. He got rid of a lot of dead wood after he managed to keep us up that season. The likes of J. Emmanuel Thomas, Michael Chopra, Paul Taylor, those kind of players that were probably on quite a lot of money and weren't really offering a great deal. And instead he kind of brought in players like J. Tab and Paul Anderson, who, as I say, wouldn't necessarily set the world alight, but do a job in a very Mick McCarthy type way. And so yeah, after that season where we just managed to kind of stay up, I think the next season we kind of built on that. We didn't, you know, I think we were about mid-table, and then obviously after that, the 14-15 season, that fantastic year and probably the most exciting, the most fun that I've had since I've supported Ipswich. Obviously, I think I went to my first game, I went to my first game the year we went down from the Premier League, so I think it was 2002-03. So literally I've only seen Championship football, so you can imagine. And then we had those two kind of playoff campaigns when I was a bit younger, which I don't remember so much. So it was the kind of the first season in my whole time supporting Ipswich where it was really fun going to games, and we had that combination of big Daryl Murphy up front and Freddie Sears taking the scraps off him, and you were going to games both at Portman Road and away from home, you know, confident and going into them thinking we're going to win this. I remember some fantastic away days that season at Charlton, where we nicked it late on, and also doing the same at Watford. So that season was really good. And yeah, as I say, with a team that wasn't full of superstars, it was full of players like Tyrone Mings, bought in for 10 grand, ultimately sold on for 9 million. And that's something that, another thing Mick McCarthy, I'm kind of jumbling up my points here, but that's another thing that McCarthy should get a lot of praise for. You know, the likes of Tyrone Mings, bringing him in, selling Aaron Cresswell on. I know he inherited him from Paul Jewell, but still he got a very good fee for him as he went to West Ham. I'm trying to think of someone. Kiefer Moore most recently bought for, I can't remember exactly how much it was, but it wasn't much at all, from Forest Green, and sold on to Barnsley, who we're going to see play tonight actually at Portman Road for, I think he went for about 750k. So very astute in his business dealings, I think you would have to say. So as I say, yeah, that excellent playoff campaign where we unfortunately eventually went down to the Scummers up the road, but we did so on a shoestring budget. However, things after that have kind of steadily declined. The year after we got into the playoffs, we kind of just missed out. I think we finished 7th the next season, but actually we were a lot further away than the table suggested. I don't think I ever really felt like we were going to get in there that year. And then the one after that, so two seasons ago, was probably, well, definitely the worst of his tenure. I think we scored barely any goals at home. And that was when there was that stat with the Football Finance survey, which came out that it was the most expensive. It cost Ipswich fans about £13.50 to see a goal an Ipswich goal at Portman Road, which was the worst and the most expensive out of every team in the Championship, and we were just awful at home. It was dire football. And then kind of onto this season where the tone has got really kind of sour between the fans and Mick, and the wedge has just been driven further and further apart. I think Mick said, which I'm not too sure about, that the first kind of murmurings of discontent started at Brentford away, actually, 2016. And I did think, I kind of get the fact that he says some very stupid things in press conferences and he always bites back, and he's very childish. He's become much more childish in his press conferences. But I did think that the tide turned against him with the fans a lot too early. I think actually you've got to have a bit of you can't just expect to be up there and challenging for the playoffs all the time. You've got to look at your position financially against other clubs and think, right, where actually are we? You know, we're not realistically going to be able to challenge with, or we shouldn't be able to challenge with, the likes of Wolves and those kind of teams with a lot of money. I know people will say, yes, but look at, you know, teams like Millwall this year and Sheffield United, who both have come up and are both kind of doing a lot better than us. Which is true, but you can't do that season in, season out with no money. You might have the odd good season like we did in 2014-15 when we got into the playoffs, like Millwall and Sheffield United are doing this season, but that's not, I don't think, sustainable to do that year upon year without the investment. So, but that's just my view. So yeah, I think generally I would have to say that he's done a decent job, and I think my overriding kind of thoughts when I look back at Mick McCarthy's reign in a few years will be that, yeah, he did a good job, and I'm pleased with the work that he did. So now we have to look for a new man, don't we? Been a lot of names touted around. I don't think any of which have really kind of jumped off the page and inspired me. But I suppose we're not exactly going to go out and get Pep Guardiola, are we? So I think the Cowley brothers, they've been touted around. They've had a really good time at Lincoln, obviously getting promoted from the conference last year. They're challenging for promotion again, back-to-back promotions. They just won the Johnson Paints Trophy, and obviously they had that fantastic FA Cup run last year in which they knocked us out. So I don't think they'd be the worst bet in the world. There's, who else have we got? Alan Pardew, I think his name's been touted about. Don't really want him. I don't want another kind of old experienced manager off the carousel of just going from job to job to job. The kind of main two bits of criteria that I would look for if I was Marcus Evans are someone that's ambitious. That doesn't have to necessarily mean someone that's young and, I'm not being ageist here. But someone that's ambitious, someone that wants to do the job, someone that really sees it as, even if they see it as a kind of stepping stone to something else. I want someone that's going to be ambitious and going to get the fans back on side and get everyone connected in that way, and not someone who just sees it as another job. So that would be one thing. And the other thing I'd like to see is someone that tries to play football in a manner which is kind of vaguely aesthetically pleasing. I don't want to say the right way, because I know that there's no right way of playing. The right way of playing is getting lots of wins and getting promoted. But I don't realistically expect us to be challenging right at the top of the table. Therefore, I'd at least like to kind of be entertained and try and play in a manner which is good to watch, because obviously I've talked about McCarthy and how I think he's done a decent job in general, but I am so bored of watching his football, and I'm so bored of going to Portman Road, and I'm really having to get myself up to go to Portman Road these days, and it's just, I don't know, it's a struggle. The atmosphere is poor, which is another thing that I don't think that's necessarily McCarthy's fault. That runs a lot deeper, doesn't it? That runs a lot kind of deeper within the 16 years we've been in the Championship. But yeah, someone that's going to try and play football in a nice way would be good. And I don't think we ask for a great deal as Ipswich fans, but that is something I would like. So there we go, that's all the kind of management stuff. Let's move on to more kind of recent issues. Really good, exciting game that we had against Mill the other day, I thought. 2-2 it finished against a Mill side that are kind of bouncing at the moment. They're unbeaten in, I think, about 13 or so, and they just can't stop winning. Obviously they didn't beat us, but they're winning lots of games. And yeah, it was an exciting game. I don't think we necessarily were particularly amazing. A few kind of standout performances. Obviously, once again, we don't even need to say it anymore, do we? From Bart, some terrific saves in that second half when Millwall really should have, I would have said, got the win in the second half. Really nice and positive to see young Ben Falami make his league debut. Funnily enough, I actually saw him play for, I think, the under-23s it would have been, against my local team, Leiston Town. And I remember thinking, God, who is this kid? He's decent. And I'm not actually too surprised to see that he's kind of in and around the first team at the moment. But he looked really bright. He just looked kind of switched on and intelligent. So it'd be nice to see him again before the season is out, hopefully tonight. We shall see. But yeah, that was a good game against Millwall. It was kind of, the atmosphere was better and things just felt a little bit more positive. But then it was kind of straight back to the same old boring performance. Brentford away on Saturday, I went up there and it was a really fun day. Just obviously ruined, as has been the case a few times this season, by the actual football. Just didn't really offer anything, never really looked like scoring at all, nor did they, to be honest, I didn't think. And it was only kind of a fairly soft penalty looking back that won the game for them. I don't think they're going to get near the playoffs. I don't think, well, what I saw on Saturday, they're anywhere near good enough. But that's that one. I don't want to go into too much detail on that game because, to be honest, there wasn't a great deal to talk about. Just want to mention, obviously, it's a shame that Luke Chambers, we're not going to see him again this season. He's managed to a dude break a rib, fracture his sternum and dislocate his shoulder all in one. And apparently he's told McCarthy that he'll be fine in 2 weeks, which is typical Chambo. But yeah, realistically, I don't think we're going to see him again, which is a shame. He's had another solid season. He's probably, you know, not for kind of technical ability, but he is my favourite player. I think him and Bart. Just for what he gives, he gives 100% all the time, which I know people say should be the minimum, which of course is right. But I think he seems to love the club, and he's kind of respected by the other players, and yeah, just kind of in this modern age of footballers, he seems to be a bit of a throwback, which is nice to see. So let's touch on tonight's game briefly. It is Barnsley at home, as I said, and it's not the most kind of inspiring fixture, I wouldn't have thought. I mean, I suppose it's vaguely interesting because Barnsley are kind of scrapping for their lives. They're third bottom, trying to get out of it, so it'd be interesting to see how they do. Against Mick McCarthy's hometown club, who you never know, he might be managing sooner than we think. Looks like young Barry Cotter, the Neymar lookalike, might get a look in tonight. Whether, I don't know, probably not from the start, but off the bench, obviously, as Chambo is out. So it'll be interesting to have a look at him. As I said earlier, Kiefer Moore returns to Ipswich, and he's definitely going to have a point to prove, isn't he? I thought, as I mentioned in the previous video, kind of bit unfairly let go. I know we made a decent profit on him in the end, but we kind of sent him out to get football and score goals, which he did, and then he came back and he wasn't really given a chance. But there we are. So we'll be going to Portland Road tonight, so I'll be dragging myself there, and I just couldn't care less about the result, but I'd like to see us try and play some good football, and I'd like to be excited. I think it could quite possibly be the lowest attendance of the season, but we shall see. Thank you very much for watching once more. I feel like I've kind of rambled through this video very quickly and spoken kind of in a jumbled way, but whatever, it's fine. I'll catch you soon. Please do continue to watch videos. Please do subscribe on the channel as well, because obviously I'm getting fairly kind of good numbers views wise, but it would be really good to have a few more subscribers. And I will catch you soon. Thank you for watching.